call to order the Siloam Springs Board of Directors meeting for March 18th, 2025. Roll call.
Blair.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Wiles.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Rissler. Here. Allen.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, if you all will please stand with me as Director Allen leads us in prayer, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us here tonight to make decisions for the betterment of our community and its citizens. Please look after each of us as we travel home. Look after our state leaders, our federal leaders, our military men and women around the world. Thank you for giving us this day. Thank you for giving us this beautiful weather, and we look forward to more of it. We ask these things in Jesus Christ's name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to ask anyone that has an electronic device, excuse me, to please silence that or turn that off while we don't have an interruption during our meeting. The first thing on our agenda is public input time. At this time, I would ask if there is anyone here that would like to make a statement to this board about anything that is not on our regularly scheduled agenda. If there is, please come to the podium. You will have 3 minutes, and I just need your name and your address, please. So is there anyone? There is not. So I would ask, is there anyone here that would like to address the board on an item that is on our consent agenda? Yes, sir.
Doyle Carroll, 2008 North Carl. This is item E under the consent agenda. We have observed the development of that area very intimately, and we have been impressed with how it has come together. The quality of work appears to be more than first class. We are going to be interested in seeing how the drainage control is actually carried out, and we are just, well, the people who are doing the developing and so forth need to be highly recommended.
Thank you, Doyle. Is there anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Heather Brownstone. My address is 13299 Taylor Orchard Road. Technically, I live in Gentry, but I am a proud member of the Siloam Springs community. I attended school here. I taught Sunday school here, and I am a small business owner here. So I actually wanted to speak about 201 College Street and the deck there.
I believe that's on the agenda for later.
It's I. Speak down.
The vacation of right-of-way for 201
Yes.
North? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. There will be a time for public input whenever that is on the floor for the board to consider.
Is that not now?
It is on our regular agenda, so no, that is not now.
I'm sorry, I'm
No.
misunderstood.
That is just fine. So, yes, ma'am, we'll let you know whenever we are addressing that, so you'll be sure to have
Fantastic,
time.
thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? There is not. So with that, we will move into our consent agenda. Item A, regular meeting minutes, February 25th, 2025. B, regular meeting minutes, March 4th, 2025. Excuse me. Item C, purchase electric department Ford F-350 4x4 service truck, National Auto Fleet Group for $79,880.70. D, purchase Public Works Water Service Division Bruckner's Truck and Equipment 2026 Mack Granite Tandem Axle Dump Truck, $184,888. Item E, Resolution 1225, Final Plat Development Permit for Oak Brook Condition, 700 block of West Pittsfield Street. Directors, that is the consent agenda. Is there any item that you would like pulled for separate consideration?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I have some questions about E, please.
Okay. Item E. Anyone else? If not, I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with item E removed.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Burns.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Betsy, item E, the resolution 12-25.
I have a couple of questions. A citizen couldn't be here tonight, hurt her knee, and asked me, there was talk of a fence going up, the potential fence. It's Missy Morris. She was wondering if that, because she had asked about it before.
Madam Mayor, Kevin Moore, Public Works. The fence being discussed was requested, but I don't believe that's required since they're residential uses. So at the time, I think the developer had stated that, you know, most of their owners would possibly install a fence, but that's not with the final plat, that's with building permits usually.
Okay, so it'll just be an individual house-by-house fence?
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
and just likely a standard privacy fence.
Okay. And also, do you know what the sizes of the houses will be?
No, we've not received any building permits. That's not part of the final plat.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Anyone else? If not, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 12-25 for the final plat, Oak Brook Edition?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you all. With that, we'll move into our regularly scheduled items. Ordinance 25-04, second reading, amending Section 102-21 of the City Municipal Code, rezoning from A1 to R4, the 400 block of Meadow Court. Ben, are you presenting?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. This is the second reading of the rezoning that the mayor just mentioned at 400 block of Meadow Court. As you recall, this was tabled, I believe, 2 meetings ago to this meeting. The request, as a reminder, is going to R4, which is multifamily, for 2.18 acres. And this will also require a future land use map amendment to allow for multifamily. Since the last reading, we have not received any additional information from the applicant on the permit. And with that, we were available for any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Directors, comments or questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, David?
I believe we tabled this because we heard the owner have some question about possibly making changes. And did Ben just say he's heard nothing from owners?
I believe we have the gentleman here.
okay.
So, yes, sir. What is your name, please?
Jason Ingalls with Expedient Civil Engineering. We did make some changes, we just haven't presented it, so I'll present it to the clerk here. Now, this is just a concept, I know that, but we were asked to reduce the number. I do want this board to know that you still have the significant development permit to approve this, which would approve the amount of units we'd be looking at. We did reduce it to 4 units, took your advice, did that. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Jason? So, I'll share with you. No, here, I don't need one. So, David, do you have other questions?
No, that was it.
Okay.
I was wondering, because of Ben's comment, why there hadn't been anything. But
Gotcha.
now I see.
Okay. Directors, do you want just a minute to kind of look at this, and then do you have
I
other
do.
questions?
I have some
Okay.
questions.
So give us just a second. Jason, and we'll look this.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Well, I'm ready.
Okay, you go ahead, Brad.
Yes, sir. I think, at the end of the day, as previous conversation, it's the access into this, reducing the numbers. And so as we looked at that, the real, I know that's not within your wheelhouse because this is already pre-developed. So a couple of safety concerns is that as I'm looking at this template, that must be during working hours, because I know when I go there on the weekend, this is a car fest.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's jammed up pretty heavy, right? So, and you're gonna have to move the mailbox, but the question in there is, who does it lie upon to, improve that access back there?
Well,
So,
go ahead.
if I might, Brad, we're actually talking about just the rezoning, and I don't think that has anything to do with the rezoning. Is that correct, Ben?
Madam Mayor, yes, we're just considering the rezoning tonight, not a development proposal.
And when would that come to the board?
It would depend on the applicant. Whenever we would receive a new application, we would then filter that through the planning commission into the board of directors per our usual process.
So I would like to ask that we restrict our conversations and our questions to the rezoning, because that is what we are considering tonight.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Lisa?
Considering zoning, and I know you give this to us, so the last meeting, Jay, we talked about, sorry, it's awkward talking. At the last meeting, we talked about if it's R4, they can propose this, they can show us whatever pictures they want, they can do whatever they want. And we're looking at the zoning. If it's an R3, they can only do the one-story duplexes. But if it's an R4, we're opening it up, when we make it an R4, that they can put anything they want in there. No matter what they show us, they could change it, right?
That is, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
may I respond? That's correct, so long as the proposed development complies with all the
zoning.
use requirements for R4, that's what they're allowed to do. You are exactly correct.
But
Thank you.
I may remind this board that the significant development permit will have to come back before this board to approve that.
Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Chris
Yes.
Paxton, I'm the Community Development Director.
Yes, Chris.
I do want to advise the board, yes, it does have to go through a significant development. However, Richardson v. the City of Little Rock Planning Commission holds the board to any of the allowances that are in the zoning would be required to be approved during the significant development review. So anything that would be allowed within that zoning district would be allowed during the significant development.
So if we allow this at R4, he can do whatever level.
If it's rezoned to R4, then by right, he would be eligible to build anything that the development code allows within the R4 zoning district by right.
Okay, so I think that the conversation was that we were thinking about, we want it to be an R3, I think more than an R4. Is that the correct conversation we had? Does anybody?
If I'm, Madam Mayor, if I
Yes.
may, and I think that was the conversation that, even though we trust what they're saying in there, because what the development they're bringing forward is pretty much an R3 development. If you approve it, they could
Okay,
change that. Not saying they would do that, but I want the board to be very clear is that's what could happen. Not saying they would, but
Right.
they could.
Right, and we've been burned in the past.
Mayor?
Yes.
No offense.
Let me rephrase that.
Yes, sir.
The zoning concerns me because of access. You're welcome. That's a better, sorry, that's the proper.
Thank you, Brad.
That was good.
Very creative.
I think that access could be a condition of approval based on the SDP once that comes through, but that would be my response to that.
Okay. And Jason, did you have something?
Chris.
Kevin, I'm sorry.
Kevin Moore, Public Works. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did just want to clarify from one of the director's questions, there's nothing in R3 that would limit them to a one-story building. It's just the number of units per acre and per lot.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I would also just like to inform the board, conditions of approval during a significant development permit should only comply with the existing development code standards. We can't add additional conditions of approval beyond what's allowed in the development standards.
Yes,
Mayor.
Mindy?
And just remind me again, I think we talked about this before, according to current R4 standards, what's the number of units the maximum number of units that could go in 2 acres? It's a little over 2 acres.
Ben?
Madam Mayor, yeah, we have that in staff report, but I have to pull that up. But what the rule is 16 units per acre. So I believe it was on the map there at
Could be at least-
2.18 acres,
So it could be at least 32.
roughly 32. Yeah, then that's maximum by zoning. But I would like to remind the board that typically you'll see less because there's parking and drainage requirements, detention basin, green space. So all those things subtract, if you will, the total number of units that potentially be on a property.
Yeah. That's what
Right,
this
but
is.
in the last drawing that we got, there were actually 7 fourplexes, so 28 units. And that was, you were able to fit what you felt like was needed for the parking with 7, right?
Well, we had discussed that we hadn't ran drainage numbers. We had no idea. That was
Okay.
just a concept of detention, but
Have you run those drainage numbers now?
no, I have
Okay.
not. But we've considerably reduced it to 4 units.
Feel like
Yeah.
that's going to work?
There's a bunch
Okay.
of open green space now. Looks like we can salvage quite a bit of the trees on site too with this layout.
Directors? Anything else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
have you guys got one of these?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David?
if anyone has a question of what we discussed as to why we decided to table this 2 meetings ago, it's right here in the minutes that we okayed tonight. And I will just point out, we need to acknowledge a Scrivener's error on the agenda date for the regular meeting minutes and workshop meeting minutes. We were supposed to be having 2, the February 25th meeting and the March 4th meeting minutes that we were approving. But it's right here, and it is very obvious that the reason we tabled is because, as Director Rissler said, we were considering R3.
Thank you, David. Yeah, Reed?
Mayor, from what you're seeing with this new write-up, would R3 fit into that? Or would that fit into R3?
Madam Mayor, R3 would allow for a duplex, so it would be 2 units total. You would not be able to build this proposal with R3.
Thank you. Reed, anything else? Does that answer your question?
It does. Doesn't make it the decision easier with. I like this design. I like how it's laid out. I like where the neighbors around, you're not going to be staring into someone else's backyard, so to speak, just by looking out the back window right away. But if we go with R4, this doesn't have to be followed, and I'm not going to look at you and call you a liar or anything like that, but we do have zoning for a particular reason, and I would be hesitant to just say R4 and leave that wide open. I'm just a thought about PD. If we were to look at this under that, where we could make conditions. And I'll ask that of whomever, whether it's Chris or Kevin or Ben.
Well, if you did that, I believe that they would have to go back and kind of start all over in,
Madam Mayor?
yes.
Yes, they would have to go back through the process. We would also have to assess to determine if the qualifiers and disqualifiers would apply for PD development.
Thank you.
Because, Madam Mayor,
Yes, Reed.
with PD, we would be able to have more input as far as what went there. And if we had specific conditions, then we would be able to say, this is what will be there without tremendous changes.
Hypothetically, if this was going through as a PD development, qualified for such, then yes, the board would have the ability to provide conditions of approval.
Anything else?
No, not at this time.
That was my developer's question. He just was like, is there a way for us to commit to this design during this process? Or it's always the rezone, there's no way to marry them together?
Madam Mayor, if the applicant desires to rezone to PD, he would need to withdraw the current application and reapply for a new PD zone. We can't just transfer it on the fly right now.
So what I think he's really, I'm
That wasn't
thinking
answering
he's
my
not
question.
asking for the
No.
PD. I think he's asking if this design that they have presented to the directors, if they commit to this design in an R4,
Yes, ma'am.
then would they be allowed to do that?
Madam Mayor, I would probably have to defer to legal or Mr. Paxton on that.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
This is, R4 is not a zoning district that we can lock a design in by concept. It doesn't apply to that zoning district. The only zoning district that I'm aware of in the city of Siloam Springs that has that option is the PD zoning.
Correct. I mean, I think what he was asking though, is there a way to, I don't know if it's the same agenda or the zoning goes first and the significant developments on the same agenda, but just heard afterwards? That sort of thing like that. I know that's kind of unique, but
There are we do have processes, Madam Mayor, to expedite processes, but we would have to assess that and work with the applicant. Working on that on the fly is a little complicated because we have calendars to look at and we have submission date requirements, et cetera. There's also public notice for specific items. We would have to assess that back at the office.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes. David?
Did this already get answered? I'm not sure, but the quadplexes that you have on this design, are they one story, two-story,
I think they were still two-story.
two-story?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Because that was the only concern on the light going into the backyard of the people to the north. Even though, there are a lot of trees there that I think would block it. The other thing, I got a little confused by what Chris was saying. Was he saying the quadplexes do not fit in the R4? What we have in front of us?
R3, I think is what he meant.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
What I meant by that is the design that is provided cannot be locked in by the applicant with R4 zoning. The applicant can do anything that is allowed within an R4. With a PD, if the applicant provided us with a concept design and with amendments to the PD zoning, provided it qualifies for such, then that concept would be locked in and attached to the zoning. However, a concept cannot be locked in with an R4 zoning.
I have a question for you, Chris. Does this, maybe the planning staff, does PD, is there a minimum acreage that would
It's
be
1
required?
acre minimum.
Just only 1 acre? Okay. All right. I was thinking it was more than that.
So, directors, any other comments or questions at this point?
I think what we've been told is this is only due at zoning to R4
Yes.
only. And what we've been presented cannot be assumed or locked in as what it would be, even if the developer is saying tonight that's what he wants to.
That is what I understand.
R4 could be anything.
That is
Yeah.
correct, David.
Okay.
Yes. So with that, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 25-04? If there is not, directors, I will come back to you one more time. I will ask if you have any comments or questions.
I do have one more
Yes,
question,
Mindy.
Madam Mayor. So if this were not to go in the way of the applicant's favor tonight, they could resubmit the plan development, and approximately, you talk about a timeline for all of that, approximately how long would that be for them?
Madam Mayor, I believe if this, there is a restriction on continuing forward for a rezone request to an R4. However, if there was a significant change, I believe that they can submit that immediately.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, that's correct.
Yes.
They could reapply the next submittal cycle, which is April 1st. And rezonings from application to where the board hears it take about 3 months.
So you're looking at a 3-month time frame for them to get back in front of the board. Is that correct?
Correct. 3 months after April
3 months
1st.
after April 1st.
It will have to go back to the planning commission? A plan development would?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, does it have to be two separate things? Can a zoning change be part of be a condition of, well, no, the plan development would be the zoning. Okay, never mind. 3 months. Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Lisa.
So if we took it to an R3, and they could only build one set of duplexes right now, when you do a lot split, how big is an R3 is an acreage?
They're, for 2 units, it'd be 7,000 square feet. So they could split it and get probably 2 duplexes, but we really would need to look at a proposal to see what could possibly fit on there. We can't say that right now.
Okay. I'm just curious about the lot split and the size and if they, okay.
2,500.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I spoke with the developer at the last meeting when we denied him, and he's a very trustworthy person. He's he's the most easiest going developer I've met. He should have been upset, but he was not. So I hope he does not get upset again tonight. Having said that, we are talking a development long-term, and so timeframes versus the lifespan of the city of Siloam Springs, really 3 months is irrelevant versus 20 years of this being here. And I looked back at my notes, and we had some interesting discussion, and that is the concern on that. And unfortunately, the PD conversation really seems the most interesting for that particular site, so that we're all happy.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David?
I agree with Brad, and did I understand correctly that we tabled this 2 meetings ago? Basically, a month ago. And there was no interaction between staff and the developer within that time on options to change or anything?
Megan, no, I didn't receive anything. Megan?
I had a few phone calls with the applicant's agent, but at that time they were still trying to figure out what their plan of action was for this meeting, and so they didn't have any updates for me, but it was about 2 different phone calls over the last month about it.
So this is all new to you guys?
Yes, I have not seen this concept.
The thing that we talked about was possibly going to R3, and I think we did even say possibly PD. So to wait to now to be saying, yeah, this is going to be voted down because it goes to PD, I just think we've waited 2 meetings, and I wish it could have already been discussed. So I'm frustrated, not with you guys, but anyway.
Madam Mayor?
That's all I have.
Thank you, David.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
To
Alan?
kind of bounce off what Director Allen is saying, I did reach out to staff when we were getting this agenda together to make sure that the applicant was still moving forward and we hadn't heard anything. So I've been checking back and forth with community development, make sure, I didn't know, because I was trying to save them time, because I think I talked to the developer and let them know if they pulled it, that's 2 less weeks you have to wait, but this is where we are.
Thank you.
So did I understand correctly, if this fails, it can come back with a new application for PD?
That is correct, immediately, because there is going to be a significant change to what they're proposing. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Mayor. We would consider a different zone a substantial change. Yes.
And if it is PD, he could attach this
And they can
to
look
it.
at a whatever, yeah, a whole new, yeah.
I think that's the way to go.
Okay, so with that, then, directors, do I have a motion to place ordinance 25-04 on its second reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hunt,
No.
Rissler,
No.
Allen,
No.
Carroll,
No.
Blair,
No.
Burns,
No.
Wiles.
No.
Motion fails with a 7-0 vote. But gentlemen, as you have heard, you will have the opportunity to come back tomorrow, if you so choose, to start the process. Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, that sounds
Yes.
negative, 0 to 8,
But-
I think it is in the best interest of the applicant himself.
It gives them an opportunity to
I
turn
think,
around
I think
quickly.
this is best for everyone. Yeah.
We did save the third reading.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So Alan, no, we don't need to do that. It failed. We're moving on. Ordinance 25-07, third reading, amending section 102-21 of the City Municipal Code, rezoning from R2 to PD, the 20,000 Bruce Rutherford Road. Ben Rhodes?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. Yes, this is the third and final reading for the rezoning, and also it was past annexation to PD. This is for 51 acres, and we would also be amending the land use map from neighborhoods 1 to neighborhoods 2. As you would recall, there were some conditions suggested for the second reading, which potentially been carried on for the third and final reading. These conditions are listed there on the screen, and staff is available for any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben? Directors? Any comments or questions? If not, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 25-07? There is no one, so directors, I will come back to you. If there is no other questions, I will ask for a motion to place ordinance 25-07 on its third reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only.
So moved.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
No.
Burns,
Yes.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Alan?
Ordinance number 25-07, ordinance amending section 102-21 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code, city zoning map, rezoning from R2 to PD, property located at the 20,000 block of Bruce Rutherford Road, and amending the future land use map of the Siloam Springs 2040 Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 25-07?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
No.
Burns,
Yes.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Ordinance 25-07 is adopted. Thank you very much. Next is ordinance 25-08, third reading, vacation of utility easements, the 2200 block of Highway 16. Megan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Megan Thomas, current planner. This is the third and final reading for a request to vacate utility easements located at the 2200 block of Highway 16. As a reminder, the applicant is requesting to vacate two 20-foot wide utility easements located to the south of Lot 1 and north of Lot 2 of the Soft 16 addition. There have been no changes since the last reading, and staff is available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Megan? Directors, comments or questions? There being none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 25-08? There is not, so, directors, do I have a motion to place ordinance 25-08 on its third reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes?
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Alan?
Ordinance number 25-08, an ordinance vacating and abandoning utility easements at the 2200 block of Highway 16.
Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 25-08?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Roll call.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes?
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Ordinance 25-08 is adopted. Next is ordinance 25-10, first reading, vacation of right-of-way 201 North College Street. And you don't look like Megan at all.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Kevin.
Kevin Moore, Public Works. The applicant is requesting to vacate a portion along North College Street, across the block there. A deck was constructed into the right-of-way, and when staff discovered this, we reached out to the applicant, starting on the code enforcement side. The applicant requested what options are available in order to keep the deck, and really the only option available is to vacate that portion of the right-of-way since it is constructed off their property and into the public right-of-way. They were advised that staff was unlikely to support the request, just depending on the details proposed. The city is requesting to retain an easement in the vacated right-of-way if it is vacated, and that language is in the ordinance. Several of the directors and the police chief are against the right-of-way vacation as it's proposed due to issues with future maintenance. The current proposal vacates all the way to the edge of asphalt. And then also there are some safety concerns. I will mention striping has been brought up as a possibility to address those safety concerns, and that is an option. Though staff would recommend actually hardscaping that area of street to provide a physical buffer between the deck and any vehicles in the future. If the deck is removed, there is some striping that could be done to kind of improve the clarity of the one-way street in that area. But whatever staff proposes will change based off of whether or not the deck remains. Also, for your consideration, the vacation area being requested would go below the 50-foot typical right-of-way for a minor local street. So it violates our standard typical section for ordinance for minor local. And then, again, just note that a denial would require the removal of the deck. So I want to make sure that that's at the forefront of your minds as you're considering this as well. Staff is recommending denial just due to the concerns of that area, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Directors, comments or questions from you?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Lisa.
I see the similarity.
We look just alike, just like Kevin and Meg.
You mentioned the hardscaping that would have to be installed instead of striping. What kind of cost is that?
A quick estimate would be about $35,000 or so. So demo of the existing street, putting in curb and gutter, sidewalk, kind of filling that area to provide a physical boundary between vehicles and that deck. Striping would be closer to a couple thousand or a few $1,000s.
Kevin, would we do that in-house?
That is an in-house estimate, so I don't know whether or not that's something we would do in-house, but that's kind of the low end of what we'd be looking at for
And the
physical
striping was how
improvements.
much?
I'm sorry?
Striping was what?
Couple thousand to a few $1,000s. Striping's about $1 a foot, and then the arrows and words and things like that are usually about $250 a piece.
Madam Mayor.
Indy?
So for the hardscaping that you're talking about, where would that go, from where to where?
We'd be looking kind of south of the alley that's marked on the survey. So beginning south, kind of in this general area. Oh, I'm sorry. In this general area, and then bringing over a transition for those vehicles, and then maybe doing some of the on-street parking here that's shown. That would certainly be an option, but trying to get that physical space. So we need to direct vehicles with a smooth enough transition that it's not a danger in itself, and then make sure that they stay away from that deck.
Are you done? Is striping recommended for the safety side?
No, striping is an option, but it's not recommended. My recommendation would be a physical barrier, a physical improvement.
Yes, Betsy?
Madam Mayor, this probably isn't even an option at all, but can the deck be made smaller and avoid hardscaping and everything else, or is it just, I'm just trying to think of, are there other options? $35,000 for hardscaping for a $1,000 deck is, yeah.
It's, the deck, it'd be of course up to the applicant. The deck could be made smaller, but you'd still be vacating whatever portion the deck occupies. So if you're looking at, I think right now it's close to 15 and a half feet. So if you're looking at vacating 7 or 8 feet instead, that's a possibility. That'd be at the board's discretion.
Madam Mayor, and if you did what you just suggested, we would get back to the 50 feet of right-of-way.
Correct, yes, yeah. The current proposal leaves about 44 and a half, and our typical section is 50.
We need 6.5 more feet.
Essentially. And I will say this isn't a typical section though, just with the on-street parking on the other side, but that's usually what we would be looking for is that 50 feet.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Lisa?
So if they did that, if the applicant decided to do that, they would go through the permitting process. Would they not have to get a permit to build the deck?
I would leave that up to our building department. I don't know if they would retroactively approve. If it's all new construction, then it would be a new permit and a new deck. But if they're able to modify the existing deck, that would be whatever's needed to satisfy our building official. So, because there was no permit for the deck that's there today.
Oh, so so they would have to go through the permitting. If there's no permitting in place, we all have to go through permitting.
Correct. So they would have to, if the right-of-way were vacated, then they would be retroactively requesting a building permit for the deck. But staff can't approve that building permit since it's currently in the right-of-way.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad?
So this is an interesting street because nobody cared about this street prior to a deck being built. It's an amazing fact. So at some point, we just have to use common sense. I mean, that's where we're at today, right? There's been a pile of SB2 in the city right-of-way at the adjacent property since time. I mean, I don't even know how to talk about it. So were the property owners incorrect for building the deck? Yes. Did they go based on the historical structure and the steps coming down? They just thought it was part of the right-of-way and they should have followed through. All that is true. Here we are today. I've received the most emails outside of my famous bicycle escapades, if we remember the experiments on those greenways, where we had the armadillos, remember all that? Okay, we don't do that.
remember.
But everybody likes the deck. This is an example of form-based codes, where we have the form and then we base the code around it. This is a one-way street that gets violated on a daily basis. The Masonic Lodge has been there since the dawn of time. The parking lot is not striped. It is not upkept. We've never had curbed and gutters there. I can give you a preview of my previous stint on the board where I had open debate with city staff on drainage issues on Tahlequah and Benton Street and the sidewalks to nowhere, so we can go on. So this is a great example of an infill. It's a lesson learned from an infill. We slap a couple of big boulders at the base of the patio or the deck. And I know you just cringe with your mouth, but we did it to protect the kids. They just drove into the high school. And that's what I did. I challenge you. We did it at the Woka Kayak Park. I challenge you to drive through a boulder where you do it out at City Lake. I mean, so that's what we're protecting there. And then your biggest challenge is actually enforcing that to be a one-way street. That's the challenge here. But we're incorrect on making this into a mountain. It is a simple molehill on a building that used to be used by folks with needles when it was abandoned. And they had a failed business there. They learned from it. I've never been an entrepreneur. I don't have the courage to do it. And so how do we support entrepreneurs? And what was the lesson learned from there? How do we simplify it? And what's the takeaway? And that's really where we're at today. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. David?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Brad that nobody cared about this street until this deck was built. This building has been an eyesore as far back as I remember until the Lankers remodeled it and redid it and turned it into a nice facility. And it is one-way street. We do have right-of-way on the other side of the street. If we have to lay a cable or something in the right-of-way, we have right-of-way on the other side of the street. And there's a lot of parking on the other side of the street. I will argue some of it is sticking out in the street because it is parallel in front of the creek. I do not see that this deck is hurting anything. Nothing else can be built because this is not a flat piece of land. This is almost like a hillside. I think the owners felt they had the right to do what they did because the stairs were already built in front of the building. Did not realize they had to get a permit, but I can assure you, in terms of that, we have people do their own little home projects in the city right away all over the city. And nobody gets upset and complains about it as they have on this. I will argue that we have no plans to put a sidewalk here. We have no plans to use this right away. We're not putting sidewalks around town where we need them. I certainly don't think that we would be planning to do this now simply because we want to rip out a nice deck that is actually providing a service, a lot of it to our seniors who enjoy the place as it is because there's limited seating inside. I will ask, can I get the owners to come up and ask, can I ask you all a question? How old is the building itself? Do y'all know how old the building
Yes, it
is?
was built in 1927.
1927.
What's that?
1916.
Oh, no, that's our other building. I'm sorry. This one's 1916. The ballroom's
1916.
1916. It was the original mill for all of
Okay.
Siloam.
I didn't know that until I went and visited. Y'all were closed, but I looked inside and you have all this history in there as to what it was. I didn't know it was that old, but it's over 100 years.
Yes.
And as I said, as long back as I can remember, this building and the one to the east of it that is on Wright Street, those were scary buildings. I mean, I walked from North Side down as a kid, and those were buildings you didn't go near. They were covered up with overgrown dead ivy. It was a mess, and it was dark and dank and scary. And you guys have done a fantastic job of updating the building. And I think when errors are made, this is why you have leeway to make an extraordinary exception through a board of directors. This right-of-way has not been needed in 100 years. So why would it suddenly be needed now? I don't think it will. I cannot support this removal. Simply because, as Brad said, it's just common sense to not have people rip something out that's actually doing a good function. And as I wrote notes to myself, who is it harming? What is it harming and who is it harming? Nobody. So I think it serves a purpose, and I think we need to leave it as is.
Thank you, David. Anyone else? Directors?
Madam Mayor, I'll have
yes,
questions
Reed.
when it's time for
Yeah,
for
we're
them.
not quite ready for public input yet, but whenever we are,
Are
you want.
we Are we engaged with them right now, or we want to wait for public input?
Let's wait until public input. Betsy,
Madam Mayor.
We sit
So-
back down.
if you'll
You
just-
want us
yeah.
still up here?
If you'll just have a seat right there, be fine.
So Kevin,
Thank you.
but if the deck is left, the hardscaping's going to cost the city $35,000? Is that correct? Or approximately?
I would recommend hardscaping, and yes, that's the estimate. So there are liability concerns with other alternatives.
My understanding is that the police and fire have also made comments on this. Did you say something about that at one point in time?
All the directors have, their information is in here, I think.
Madam Mayor, Scott Miller, Chief of Police. I did deny this only because of the safety issue of vehicular traffic with the deck being so close to the roadway and there is no barrier, and having people confined to a railed deck with no place to go as opposed to walking stairs before. Again, could never happen, but it could happen, as we've learned recently. Stranger things have happened. And so having a hard barrier of some sort, even if it's boulders, would suffice my safety concerns.
Good, thank you. All right, now, Lisa?
So if we vote yes to do this, then the city is forced to do something.
I would request direction on whether or not you would wish this to be a capital project for hardscaping, or if you would like staff to come up with a striping design that satisfies as many of our concerns as only striping can satisfy.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just to be clear, Kevin, Chris, until this hardscaping, if that's what the direction the board wants to go, the deck still won't be able to be used until we make this correction of the street. Is that correct, Kevin or Chris?
The
Unless
building
we put
permit
the hard-
itself would be up to the building official, whatever it takes to satisfy him.
Madam Mayor,
Okay, yes.
Christopher Paxton, I'm the director of the building division of the Community Development Department. They would have to, the deck would have to go through a review with the building official and would have to be determined whether or not it meets health and human safety standards to qualify for the permit and qualify for the occupancy and certificate of occupancy before it could be used.
Okay,
Madam Mayor.
so yes.
So just to be
Indeed.
clear, I feel like we're talking about two different things here. The deck's not being used right now simply because the permit has not been approved, because there wasn't a permit to approve. Okay. But is there an ordinance that says in a situation like this, there does have to be so much space? Because I feel like some of us are thinking that the city will be forced to do something. Of course, we want to be safe, but is there, will a boulder suffice?
I would not recommend sticking boulders in the right-of-way just due to an additional structure that a vehicle could strike.
But according to our ordinances, law, whatever, something has to be done as a barrier between the vehicles and the end of the deck. Is that what I'm hearing, or not
We don't have
necessarily?
any ordinance that would require anything specific. We do adopt AASHTO standards and some other design standards that we would reference in whatever we put together to provide that buffer.
Oh, It's
That
best
recommendation.
practices and keeping our citizen safety in mind. It's not necessarily law or ordinance based right now.
Correct, yes, it's design standards.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Reed.
Gentlemen, so we're not even sure, even if we did the $35,000 improvement, we're not even sure if the deck has not been approved. Let's say the bollards or whatever are too far apart or what have you. We don't even know what that rests on right now. As far as the railing, the height of the railing. Because if we don't even know what that is, I don't think we need to be working on all this if we're saying, hey, we're going to get two boulders there, and then all of a sudden, well, this doesn't work, so we got to tear it down.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Chris.
would deflect back to the applicant whether or not they've submitted to the building official of the city any plan set for that deck at this time.
No, we were asked not to. We were asked to go through this process, and should it be approved, then we would submit those plans.
And Madam Mayor, I believe that's where we're in a kind of a circular reference, is you can't request a permit in property that you don't own, and thenceforth, they can't request to have a permit in the property because it's not owned by the applicant.
Point of order, I believe it is owned by the applicant. The city simply has a right-of-way to access the property.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
That is incorrect.
That is incorrect. All right, I stand corrected.
The right-of-way is owned by the city. It is not an easement. It is not an access easement. If it was an access easement, then yes, it would be owned by the applicant. In this regard, the property line that is owned by the applicant is I believe it's at the front face of the structure. The current right-of-way, I believe, includes the sidewalk that is in front of their structure forward.
Madam Mayor, would it be okay if I gave these the last, would I give that to you to hand out to the rest? The last sheet shows something I think that is important. It shows sorry, you guys don't get to see this, but you can look over their shoulders. It's in a sense, what we all know already. The property line follows right on the front edge, the west-facing edge of the building. What's interesting to me is if you follow that line south, it also heads into Chris Willis's property that is right below that, and then heads into Alma's property, which is right below that. Both of those properties have already been entered into for the street. So basically the right-of-way that's in front of our building is an abandoned right-of-way. The city, in my mind, you can correct me, the city is never going to go ahead and put something into the property of Chris Willis and into the property of Alma to be able to put street or sidewalk or whatever else there. And so because of that curve, it leaves that section it's in front of our place. And that's the only place that it's potentially usable as right-of-way for the city. To, I think, David's point, we have the whole other side of the street as well. If we wanted to use right-of-way to be able to have access, it would be difficult because of the hillside that's right there and how close it is, and utilities that are there already. But that just kind of gives just where that right-of-way is and what we're asking and where the deck is.
And I think this picture that we have up here kind of follows that same, where it shows what hardscape would be put in, and does that follow the right-of-way, Kevin?
The right-of-way, so the portion in red is what's being requested to be vacated. So the right-of-way is on the right side of that rectangle, is where the existing line is. And then that width is what would need to be vacated in order for the deck to be outside the right-of-way.
So that's what this ordinance is for, is to vacate that piece.
Correct. Yes, the portion highlighted in red.
Red, okay. Directors, any
Madam
other
Mayor?
comments or questions? Yes, David.
As I said, I went down and looked at it. I took a lot of photos of it. The corner of the deck does not hang over the street. It does not even touch the edge of the street. I think that it's kind of obvious that anybody driving is not going to swerve over to hit their car into the corner of the deck. It's pretty wide for a one-way street as it is. But my question regarding right-of-way a moment ago was, if you look at the meets and bounds and all the description of ownership, it does not say it goes 2 feet away from the street. Every property goes up to and includes right at the corner, right at the edge of the street, everywhere you go. So I believe that the owners believed that this was their property. Otherwise, there was stairs built there at some point that had to have been okayed. The other thing on the handout that we just received, if you review the second page, there is buku examples of our allowance of building sidewalks, ramps, handicap drop-offs, all over downtown. And these are in areas that require walkers to move to one side or the other. The church has something I never understood how it got approved, but it's sticking right into the middle of the street. You have to drive around it on purpose. And there's many other examples, but I just cannot, for the life of me, figure out how you can go look at this place and I don't know if all the board went and looked at it. I did. I took pictures from every angle. I took pictures across the street. Plenty of parking, and yes, some of the emails we got from public, it gives a beautiful view of the Sager Creek. It's nice to be able to use it, and I sympathize with the planning and building department, the building inspector not getting approval. I understand that. But when you look at, if you look at this as is, without the deck on it, the elevation like this of this property is not flat enough to be able to put a sidewalk or to have parking where this is at. This is really kind of, it kind of blows my mind that, as Brad said, this molehill has been turned into a mountain. It really blows my mind.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Lisa.
is it possible to turn that area, to take out the street and make it part of the park? With a walking trail?
Madam Mayor, if I may, Kevin,
Yes.
one of the things to make this work, to vacate that right of way, it's my understanding that we would have to condemn or close the street. If we did that, I don't know if where the ownership would go, but I like that idea because
It's not my idea.
It could be parking
just to say that, but I don't know if the person wants me
but
to
I'm not
say
sure
whose
we
idea it
can do
was.
that. I mean, because again, where would that vacation go, Chris?
If you put
If I'm saying
walking
it
trails there,
correctly,
I
because we'd have
get
to
the
vacate that
safety.
right away, and to do that we'd have to close that street for them to use it.
You're talking about, Madam Mayor?
Yes, Chris.
I think that the city administrator is talking about for the city to utilize the area. The city ex facto is in control of all public rights of way that are dedicated to the city of Siloam Springs. In this case, this already exists as public right of way. I would have to deflect to legal whether or not we could utilize existing public right of way as a park area. We do not have a parklet ordinance, which is similar to other cities, larger cities like Fayetteville, have parklet ordinance that allows parts of the public right-of-way to be dedicated for park-type uses, which you can use for things, for example, like changing a parking space or different things to public seating for temporary periods of time. It's my understanding we do not have that here, so I do not think that we have a route forward in ordinance. So I would deflect that to legal on allowed uses of public right-of-way.
Okay.
Madam Mayor? Thank you, Mr. Paxton. Yes, this is a city right-of-way. Presently, it is a city street. A possibility might be a partial vacating of the street. I mean, let's assume it's a 50-foot right-of-way today. What if the city said, we would like to partially vacate our street right-of-way and turn that into a 12-foot walking path, for example? And I haven't done the measurements or the setbacks or things, but that would, if the city was interested in pursuing that, that might remedy the fact that the structure is now built on city property, essentially. It's not going to address some other considerations, but if it's no longer a street, then it may be that you don't have the same safety concerns for cars whizzing by the corner of the deck and those sorts of things. But that's certainly something the city could study.
I understand the safety concerns, I really do. I would not want my child on a deck where traffic is driving by, and even though they're supposed to drive slow, that doesn't always happen, because you go on these streets that we've complained about, they're supposed to be 30 miles an hour, they're not driving 30 miles an hour. And so safety of the citizens is a priority to me, but, and following the rules. I'm a rule follower, so I tend to like the rules being followed, but I think that if we could look at turning that into a park or a walkway.
So this is just the first reading of this ordinance? If I'm hearing that perhaps you all would like to have some options brought to you for this type of thing, perhaps a walking path, some way to alleviate that, is that possible for you all to get that information and bring to them before this, or with the second reading?
Madam Mayor, can I get a clarification on that? Are you talking about having the city vacate more than the deck, vacate part of the street too to turn into, or
Closing the street and making it
just
a.
closing the street?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Betsy.
but then what about parking
There is
for
parking,
the
yeah.
Masonic Lodge? on
Masonic
the-
Lodge, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and Park
That's why
House,
she's saying
there's a
bring
little
it
parking.
back, yeah.
and I had a couple questions that were just sent to me. Is the owner willing to pay for the street work, the $35,000 or whatever, to be able to keep it, which I know that seems like a lot, but this one is kind of, if nothing is done and someone runs into the deck, since it's been discussed at the city board meeting, does it open the city to liability?
Because it is in the city's right-of-way. Jay? That would be a legal question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jay Williams, City Attorney. There are general principles of municipal immunity that relate to tort claims, but despite those principles, typically a city does not want to approve a project that may be an inherent danger to the public.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Mayor,
Betsy, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Reed?
I think I'll go after Ken.
Alan?
Go ahead, I'll
Okay.
get after you.
Okay.
Two things. This may be funny or not, it's not necessarily meant to be funny, but it's kind of like, I won't use my particular wife, but a wife buying a pair of earrings and then saying, oh, now I have to get a pair of shoes and a shirt or a whole new dress and everything from a pair of earrings. It kind of has that appearance of where we're heading with this. But second, and Jason and Heather, I'm gonna put you on the spot, and not to be mean, but I feel like I'm on the spot. And what I'm saying by that is, I think the deck is awesome. I would love to have a nice baked good up there with a cup of coffee and enjoy the creekside setting. To me, that is wonderful. But where my particular difficulty comes in is that, do we leave that and whatever the expense was for that, if it was even $5,000 to build the deck, do we want to put another $35,000 to make that good? And that's the question that's to me, and you don't have to answer it today, but if this is first reading, we go to second. I'd like to know that answer if you feel like a $5,000 investment, which leads to many times more than that, if that is in the best interest for our city. And that's where I get to sit. And that may not sit very well with many who are in here and many of the emails that I have received, but that's what we have to decide. And I don't want to take a small, I say small, I don't want to buy a deck. I don't want to take that investment and explode it, so to speak. But I do not want to take away from what you've done there. That is a wonderful place. I've heard nothing but good concerning it.
Madam Mayor?
So, yes, David, just a minute.
You tell me when.
Your time's coming, I
Okay.
promise.
I don't know who all, I'm just curious, has gone down to see it and driven in front of it. The street itself being one-way does not stop with a curb before it becomes parking in front of, or to the side of, the Masonic Lodge. It's almost like 40 feet of pavement that has a few lines on the west side. But it just seems so inordinate that we would not be able to have something that designates it is a one-way street in a specific area instead of just this enormous amount of pavement, asphalt, that really makes it one big wide open street. If you go back towards the bridge, there is a lot of parking that is facing the creek instead of the old style of lengthwise. It is the other direction, which can lead into the area of driving. But again, these seem like things that could so easily be fixed if we just looked at it, went down there, came up with a plan. I've got the pictures right here. The corner of this deck does not go past or lean out over the street area. So I just don't understand the concern that someone's going to run into it.
Madam
Thank you,
Mayor?
David. So I'm going to come back to Ken.
Ken, I'm sorry.
Because he had asked for the floor.
Well, I'll start with the positive. I too think it's a great-looking deck, and I know it serves a wonderful purpose and enhances the downtown area. My concerns are twofold, I guess, primarily. One is safety. And the second, I have a very hard time justifying $35,000. Now, if we can come up with another option, that would be great to entertain. I agree with Lisa. I mean, I have even kind of off the cuff asked about and suggested maybe from University to Ashley, turning that into some kind of a pedestrian mall. I think if we could do that, and I understand the parking issues, everybody's like, yeah, but what about parking? Okay, just listen, everything's all right. I'm just imagining when we do Dogwood, when we do some other activities, that as a pedestrian mall area, I think would be great. It would be a benefit. It would be very helpful. I've got lots of questions, so I will be bringing those up between now and the next meeting. I am also glad we have still multiple readings to go. I'll be honest, right now, I am leaning to not be in favor of it as it stands right now. And so if I vote that way tonight, don't throw rocks at me. I'm not closed-minded about it. I want to talk about it. I want to see if there are other options. But I don't think it's the city's responsibility to pay the $35,000 to improve that.
Madam Mayor?
I just have a quick comment. And you can shoot this down right off the bat. Since the issue, as David brought up, seems to be more likely that if someone were to hit the deck, it'd be because they were going the correct way on that one-way street, which we know everybody goes both ways. We want to leave it a one-way street, which I'm assuming you do. What if we made it going one way the opposite direction? It's a blind corner? That wouldn't work very well?
Particularly after the University Street Bridge was
Okay.
put in, which I think is when that actually became a one-way street through
Going
that portion.
north, okay.
And I did want to clarify, I think no matter what, we're looking at some striping to clarify and properly designate this as a one-way street. but the amount of striping that we're looking at and, you know, how complex that striping plan is will depend on whether or not there's a deck that we're trying to direct traffic around.
And striping, not hard surfacing, striping is a protective measure.
It is, yes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Alan.
I had them pull up where we can see it now. This is not an up-to-date, because you can see the deck's not in this, but at least let it run down to show the directors where this one-way street goes, because keep in mind, as you get to where the deck is at, the other side of the street is all parking. So that can't be used as a street, because it actually dead ends down there in the empty parking lot up against the curb. So again, depending on the partial or how much we do with a right-of-way, if you have questions, we can look at that. Kevin kind of run you down there to see where the blind corner, and then chief or fire can comment on it with a fire truck or anything like that.
And part of the concern too with the location of the deck is because it's on this curve. That was particularly concerning. And then a lot of why traffic is directed to use this right half of the road, if you'll see this kind of faded solid yellow line, that was put in with the one way, and particularly at night, trying to keep drivers oriented north rather than accidentally traveling on that paved trail or getting off the actual road itself.
We've actually got cars parked right here, this way.
Correct. Yeah, I don't believe those are marked as parking spots, but yes, it's being
Not
used
like
as parking.
this. They're parking this way to go to the restaurant, whereas they used to park like this.
Kind of parallel parking, Director, looks like.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad?
Well, it's a first reading, so we're going to wrap it up, and I'm going to totally disagree with you. And I'm going to be adamant about this. I support you guys, Unified Development. Man, you won't find a bigger supporter. But at some point, you got to take all that knowledge that you have gained through the hierarchy of your life and come down to one little thing. We are, once again, overkilling this. We just had a drunk drive through our sign. We've had multiple people fly into the pond, and we put a little barrier up there. You can't stop a driver with intent. The amount of traffic, the speed of traffic in here does not allow itself to gain that unless a person has intent or is already inebriated and is already broken the law. And so we're looking at something completely whacked out. I'm going to give you an example, and it's called the Sister City. It's at the AML. Scott, when he was on the board back in the day, tried to get us to buy into the Sister City program. None of us bought into it, if you recall. And a Sister City is, you're a city in America, Siloam Springs, Arkansas, and globally, we related to a small town, I don't remember the name. Ironically, it was in Ireland. And our streets mimic that kind of same feel. And I'll use my street, Tahlequah, as an example. We curbed and gutter, but when you go to the S-curves, everybody likes those S-curves, right? They're never going to get curbed and gutter in my lifespan. And we have numerous streets in town that are just like that because it has that feel. It's got a European feel. It's part of our character. This is part of our character. It's in the historical district. It's H1. It should be grandfathered in. We meet the safety requirements to make police happy. And I can guarantee you fire trucks navigate worse streets than this. In fact, we just talked about one that we just turfed down because I was concerned about access. I'm not going to talk the other word. And if a fireman cannot drive an apparatus through there, then I would ask Kendall to terminate that because they take a lot of driving courses. And that's what they do. So that's our character. That's our historical district. We need to make that work. We're overkilling it. Can I meet down there with a piece of chalk and make it simple? How do we simplify this before the next meeting? And I think you can meet that challenge.
Thank you, Brad. Yes, Lisa.
I just want to say, I do think what you've done with the building, the deck is amazing. You've done a lot of great things to our community downtown. Kind of agree with Ken and Reed. I mean, and I think safety, because if it takes one incident, then how do I lay my head down at night knowing one incident happened and a child or somebody else was hurt. If I had to make this decision based off who you built the deck for, because she has amazing sandwiches, she has amazing food, I would say yes. But for me, and like Reed was saying, it has to be for the greater good of the community. And we make everybody else in the community follow the rules, and we make everybody else in the community go by the setbacks and everything else. Where do we draw the line and say, well, we'll make an exception, but what else are we gonna make exceptions on? And so that's the hard part for our position, because personally, if we got to make this as a personal decision, I think every one of us would be like, yeah, let's go for it. But when you look at the facts and who we're representing, and we're representing the city as a whole and the individuals, and what we have to live with based off of our votes, I have to agree with Reed and Ken.
Thank you, Lisa. Directors, any other comments before I go to the public?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David?
I will point out again, I've got the pictures where the cars are in it. This all could be changed on parking. This is lengthwise parking right here that narrows the actual drivability of this street.
Thank you, David.
This does not have to be here.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this ordinance concerning 201 North College? Yes, ma'am. And you will have 3 minutes.
Madam Mayor, directors, fellow community members, thanks for the time, and I'm sorry for my previous disruption of the regular business.
If you pull that mic down to you, please, because we are recording. So
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you very much.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. So as I stated earlier, my name's Heather Brownstone. My address is 13299 Taylor Orchard Road, so I do technically reside in Gentry, but I'm a proud member of this community. I shop in Siloam daily. I attended junior high and high school here. I attended church here. I helped students at the high school with ESOL when I was at university, and I taught Sunday school here. This is my community. I think the vacation of the right-of-way and the deck's important to keep it because it benefits more than 65 small, locally owned businesses. Each vendor of Milling Around, which is the building that the Lankers own, each vendor shops local. Each vendor invests in the community of Siloam Springs. The Masonic Lodge and the Key Lodge has leaders of the community and the business owners. They have families, and current and future festivals have the opportunity to use the deck as well as the area if we close it off. If we put boulders on Ashley, right there at Ashley, turn it into a park area, then it gives the opportunity for parking for Park House. It gives the opportunity for parking for the Masonic Lodge, as well as the 65 vendors of Milling Around. So you're not talking about 2 people being affected. You're talking about more than 100 people being affected, because we all have families. We all shop here. We all support Siloam and want to see it grow. There wasn't a problem with the steps, so it should follow that that deck isn't a problem. If you put the boulders there at Ashley, close the area off, stop it from being a street, turn it into a park, then you can turn it, I mean, you've got the space there for future festivals. You've got the space to paint or sketch or write, have Bible study and craft nights, as well as a sandwich from Wisconsin Spool. Like, you're not just affecting one person or 2 people. You are affecting, I would say, probably 200, 300 people minimum. So I think it's removing it, it's foolish, it takes options away from our town, and it's not in our best interest because it actually reduces economic growth. And ultimately, we all want Siloam to flourish.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Madam Mayor.
Nope, I think we have some more people. Yes, sir. Please state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Pete West. We live at 235 Maple Leaf Avenue right here in town for almost 20 years. On the picture that you showed, before the deck was there, I keep hearing talk about safety. As it was before, to me it seemed less safe because an errant driver could just drive right up the hill into anybody on that sidewalk that ends right there. So if there was ever a sidewalk built off to use as a walkway, to me, that is less safe. There's nothing to stop an errant driver from just coming right up the little hillside there and even possibly hitting the building. The grass and the lot there, off and to the left of the picture, could be utilized for something more. But to me, if the deck doesn't come over the edge of the road, to me, that was a more dangerous situation because they could just drive right up into the sidewalk from that point. It seems like to me that the road kind of was a forgotten road forever, and we've lived here, and my wife graduated from here, so we know the road well even before the business was there. It does seem to be a forgotten road, but it seems like with milling around there now, it's a destination street. It's not such a through street anymore, so people are going there on purpose, so it's not just because our street, our personal street where we live, it's like a Autobahn through where we live. I mean, they cut through at a high speed. This road now, because it's a destination place, isn't such a through street. So I think that having the deck, and now it's an additional place to eat and enjoy the scenery and things, is more important. And if it isn't in the street, I think it's actually more safe than the condition it was before it was there. But I just think that it feels like we're making mountains out of molehills, and if anything, maybe the landscaping timbers that you see could be built up as a railroad-type wall as just a corner to, shore up the corner of the deck, but the cost of that would be literally nothing, just a couple timbers stacked up. But it seems to be more of a destination street now. Parking seems to be really where the focus should be on because there's so much pavement around the deck that isn't really being properly used, much less the lot beside it. So I just think that there's other directions without the city having to spend $35,000 to overlook a deck that doesn't even come out into the street. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Pete. Appreciate that. Now, Jason?
Okay. It was like David was reading my mind. I'll give this to you and you pass it on. That's my attempt at Photoshop.
Okay, so I'm going to let them.
I'm so sorry.
I'm going to let them pass this around.
I'm
But
not
I am
touching
going
it.
to remind everyone
me.
in the audience that if you want something presented to this board, you need to have it to the city clerk's office before this board meeting so she can be the one that makes sure that they have copies. So I'm not getting on to you.
No,
I'm
you
just
need to.
reminding you, okay?
Yes,
that-
no, this goes back to Reed's point. Reed, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Heather and I made a large assumption, right? And you know what happens when you assume, right? And that's
represent that
what
as
you're
well.
just feeding back in the process. And so what we thought it was just a great benefit. We still think it's a great benefit. To y'all's points that you've said across is the reason why we're presenting it is because the city administration has done a phenomenal job of giving us the rules and guidelines and said, you're outside of it. And we have looked at it and said, but we just really think this is a benefit for our community. And this is the committee to bring it in front of and say, you guys decide, is this a benefit for the community or not? We didn't mean it this way, but I would say that this street has not become a street. It's been a street. And one of the issues that Alma has been running into for years now is that her patrons have been coming in, and because it's just her patrons, nobody realizes that 1,000 to 2,000 people are coming through on that street every single week for her business. My wife's business in 4 months of operation is bringing in 2,000 to 3,000 people a week that are coming into this little side street. And it's because of the vendors and all their good things that they're bringing into this. But we went from a street that if there were 50 cars on it, man, it saw so much traffic. Within the last year to 2 years, it's become a destination. 75% of our customers, as we look out our window, we've been trying to keep track, 75% of our customers, rough number, turn out and go back to university. That's where 75% go. And to, I think it was David's point, or I forget who made it, you come to a blind intersection because you have the cement wall across there. And so you got people coming across 30, that's what the speed limit says, but they're coming across a bridge. So to come out there, people are trying to be kind, they'll stop. People aren't expecting to stop there on the street. It becomes mass chaos. And it's all in front of her building right there.
One little sign. Can we see the sign? One little sign.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but if you're going to speak, I need you to be at the mic. Thank you.
So what the deck has done is, and Brad made this at the very beginning, this was like nobody paid attention to it, and now we're all talking about it. You decide what you want to decide for the deck. I obviously have a biased opinion on what I think you should decide in this. But the thing that I would push us back to is the street and its usage more than anything else. If we do not address that issue as quickly as possible, and the quickest solution is simply paint the street. Just put guidelines in there that bring it down. It's a 40-foot street. 15 feet is all you need. Now, I don't need another 15-foot downtown, right? I would like it if it has a little bit more edge for people to back up and drive through. But you got plenty of room to be able to put parallel parking. In my rough estimate, you pick up 12 more parking spaces if all you do is just follow the little Photoshop guideline that I got there. I'm sure that there are people much smarter with parking, in my to-3, that they could do a much better job. That's just something that I wanted to highlight in that it's bigger. It's raised a bigger issue, and I think that's the first one to answer. From there, go on to the other with the deck.
Thank you very much. Yes, Alan, you don't have anything? So directors?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
In this handout, what's in this black and red building?
What is in the black and that is the milling around building. It's all one building.
Okay, thank you.
I'd encourage you to come in.
Oh, well,
It's
yeah,
an awesome.
definitely.
You need to see what these vendors are doing.
And that's why I'm asking. Kevin, I'm going to put you on the spot. Not like I have not done that before.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm just thinking, okay? So no sour faces, keep your hands down. If that deck was taken out and moved north, would it still be as big of an issue?
The right-of-way would still need to be vacated in order for the deck to be
But
approved and maintained, but the safety issue, getting it further away from the curve, would be
So
beneficial.
if we came to a compromise, removed it from where it is now, put it on the north facing, and just abandoned the necessary right-of-way for that, in your mind, would that be an acceptable compromise? Or would that be, again, that's probably too much putting you on the spot. Would that give us a place to start talking?
It'd be a different conversation as far as the safety concern, for sure, having it further north and away from that curve. But that's,
I understand it's
asking a
still
lot
going
of
to be
the
in the right
applicant.
of way. I get
Yes.
that. But again, if this is going to work, I think there needs to be some compromise on both sides. And I don't know. I mean, that just came to me. Is that a possibility? It's all the same building. I think it would be as accessible on the north side as it is on the south side of the steps. And I would be curious to know, outside of this meeting, how much of the safety issue that actually takes care of.
So if I understand what you're asking, and I think that's a good question and valid question. So we've had a lot of ideas thrown at Kevin and our building department, a lot of questions still yet to be resolved. So since this is our first reading, I am going to ask that we direct staff to take all of this, put some ideas together and some options for you that are valid options for everyone, and bring back to us, or actually get back to you before our second reading. And I'm going to ask that we go ahead and I'm going to ask for a motion to place this on its first reading, and then we'll bring that information back, at least between now and the second reading. Kevin, is that realistic for you, a time frame?
Looking for, I guess, concepts of either striping or other options.
Absolutely, options for them to make this either meet the safety requirements or what we would have to do.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
It may be easier for staff just to get a general idea, and if it goes through the second reading, bring the concepts more in the third, because that's a tight timeline with everything that we have going on right now. And
That's what I
Kevin
was
being the only
wondering.
engineer and running a division.
Yeah.
You know, so we might be able to get, you know, how much easement do we have to vacate? You know, get you to see where that's at, and then how far do we have to be away from there? So let us work on some questions tonight. We will do everything we can to do that, but I would hate to commit to that with everything we have going on. Is that fair, Kevin?
That's fair. And part of my hesitation with the striping is, you know, striping fades and different things. I mean, we're looking at maintenance over time as well as we look at some of these options. And when we had discussed this with the applicant, we had asked them to show kind of the concept of what striping could look like, and then just with the note for final design by city. So I would say you already have at least some of that information to base your decision off of, just with the concept that they've provided.
But you can put that together and show all of that so the board can see all of those options.
Yes.
Yes. Betsy?
Would it help if we tabled it, and then that would push it out a little bit farther?
I don't think so, since we have three readings. So Kevin, would that help you if we tabled this to be able to have more time to bring something back to this board? Because they are asking for some, I think, direction and options.
Kevin,
can
if I
put a
may, would it be
concept.
fair to get through this reading since we went through there? If we can't meet those expectations, possibly table the second meeting?
I think I can put a concept together, just with the understanding that, you know, other things may come up when we're finally designing whatever would end up being done.
Absolutely.
And Madam Mayor, can I
think that
just
would-
clarify something on no one's able to use the deck right now, right? Until all of this is decided, no one can use the deck, right?
That's correct. My understanding is the building permit was issued with the exception of the deck.
Yeah, so entering beautiful weather and pushing it on down, I hate to push it, but.
Okay, yes, Lisa?
Can we also include in that, if they were to have a permit, is it Randall, maybe be present to answer questions that we didn't have, that we couldn't get answered?
Concerning the building permit?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, because that way we could get the full picture, not just.
I think it was my understanding we can't give them the permit until they actually own the deck, so I think
But then
that's.
it leads to other questions, you know, about the permitting, and we want to make sure I like to know completely what I'm voting on.
And as we do, you know, board, please send us emails. If you come up with a thought after the meeting, shoot us an email that we can add to this. If you come up with a question when we leave here, going, wish I would ask that. We'll be happy to do that.
Right.
But just keep in mind, we're working on the next agenda, so we will try to fit things in the best we can.
Sounds good. And I would encourage, Jason, you and Heather to also, if you have things that you want this board to hear or see, please contact Kevin or Alan so that they will know that and can use that information whenever they're putting all of this together for the board. Perfect, thank you.
Make sure we have open communication. If
Yes.
you have something, you can CC me on things, but Chris and Kevin will help you through that process. Mainly the community development.
Okay, so with
And,
that,
Madam Mayor, I do just want to say one more thing. I haven't wanted to say a lot because I wanted to hear from the applicants first. And I have spoken with them. This is in my ward, so we have had communication over the past few weeks. I feel like Brad and David have said so much of what I feel, so I won't belabor all of that. I know one concern has been, is this opening up Pandora's box? We give these people permission when they didn't do the right thing. No, I like to see everything on a case-by-case basis. There are times when exceptions can be made. Was a mistake made? Yes, a mistake was made now, but the mistake also pointed out some issues. So we learn from it, we move on. I think if they do have to do some sort of retroactive permit, there will be a fee there, not a big fee, it's not gonna pay for the streets, but it will. But I just feel like whatever we can do to make this work out, it adds so much character to our downtown. It's just it's a really neat place, and when I went by it the other day, it was just kind of sad to see that it's all blocked off right now because it can't be used. But it does provide so much character, and it overlooks one of our pride and joys of town, Sacred Creek. So I hope we can do something to make this work.
Thank you.
Because I think it will be something that will be good for the city, the merchants, everybody.
Should we
Thank you, Mindy.
celebrate that
Madam Mayor?
Dave and Brad
Yeah.
agree on something?
I do think we need to mark this day down in history.
Mark
Yeah.
mark it down in
We're
we're
history.
gonna mark that down, yeah.
Maybe you could frame that and put it in milling around. Yeah.
Madam Mayor, just real quick, Director Allen's incorrect. We have agreed multiple times over the years.
That's right.
It's not
We
correct.
have.
And I want to give the fire chief a break because I've just busted, but he did vote for it. And I apologize, I busted on your guys about your driving capabilities.
Thank you, Brad. Lisa?
Jay, I do have a question, a legal question. So when we allow somebody to not have to have a permit to do something, and I know we look at things on a case-by-case situation. It's not about what we look at, it's about what the courts look at. Does that leave us a liability that somebody else could say, well, you did it for them and you didn't do it for us? Could they possibly?
Madam Mayor, Jay Williams, City Attorney, I don't believe the city has allowed this to proceed. This was constructed without a permit, and the city has essentially red tagged it once the city became aware of its existence.
So even if we do give them the right-of-way, they still have to go through the permitting process, and what if that fails? That's my whole question, we can't get answered tonight. If we pass it, and then they still can't get through because the staff still has to do their job. We ask them to do their jobs according to the ordinances we define to them. And so that's why.
I'm sure there are building codes that govern construction of a deck, and if this is constructed in a substandard fashion, I expect the building inspector would say, here's what the remedy is, so it would comply with our code.
So I think that's why it's important for
Us to have,
us to have the building inspector here.
so we can get some questions answered, yeah.
All right, so directors, I would ask then for a motion to place ordinance 25-10 on its first reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call. I'm sorry, we have closed, we've closed public comment, I'm sorry. And I came back to and I asked if there was anyone else, and there was not. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Roll call.
Burns.
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Bristler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Motion is passed. First reading only. Alan?
Ordinance number 2510, ordinance vacating and abandoning right-of-way of 201 North College Street.
Thank you, sir. So next is our Resolution 09-25, Siloam Springs Water Resource Company, land sale, Ryan Cloud, $4,950. And Jay? I
Madam
believe you have
Mayor,
that?
Jay Williams, City Attorney. It's a beautiful parcel of land acquired by Illinois Water Development Company back in 1926. Thereafter, in 1960, the land was leased by Illinois Water Development Company to the Rush family on a 99-year lease with a 99-year right of renewal for payment of a $100 fee at that time, which would be up here in another 25 years or so. So Mr. Cloud acquired leasehold rights to this property several years ago, and I first became aware of this property as city attorney when the city was sued in a quiet title action similar to an adverse possession case. I believe the city is able to successfully defend that action should it choose to do so, because we the city, through our water development company, own the residual rights to this property. So our residual rights have not been adversely affected. It's only the other folk who may have been entitled to possession are not. So Mr. Cloud and his attorney are, I think, generally aware of that, and as opposed to a long-term right to be a tenant of this property, Mr. Cloud has approached the city and has asked for and has sought to purchase the city's rights in this property, and his offer to the city is for $4,950, and that's completely up to this board as to how it might choose to proceed. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jay. Directors?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Betsy.
On this picture where it's red and it says deed, book, Ryan Cloud, et cetera, part of that red is in the restricted buffer zone. It's the second picture at the very end of the, that's our intake.
I don't disagree with that, that it is within the restricted buffer zone. Notwithstanding that, it was leased to Mr. Cloud's predecessors in interest many years ago.
So I guess I don't understand, like, there's the intake area, the restricted buffer zone. I mean, are people allowed? I thought nobody was supposed to do anything in those areas because of our water intake. I'm just not understanding.
I think there are some special requirements that Mr. Cloud would have to meet to comply with Clean Water Act requirements and other things should he decide to install a septic field, for example.
Okay, and he's aware of that?
He has advised that he's aware of that.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
And then I'll come to you, Reed.
Well, go ahead. Let Reed speak, or that's fine.
Reed?
Right, and I think Betsy alluded to this already. Even though this property, part of it is in the restricted buffer zone, that buffer zone is not going to be affected by it. Everything that's restricted is still going to be restricted, whether he owns it or we own it.
Any owner of property within that zone has to comply with those restrictions.
Okay, thank you.
David?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very familiar with contracts. The assigned contract most always has to be approved by the original leaseor or the originator of the owner that is leasing the property before it is assigned to someone else. And I believe, Jay, you said at the last meeting that Mr. Cloud is he purchased the assignment of this contract?
I believe what he actually purchased was by quitclaim deed, rights to the property which had been foreclosed upon by Arvest Bank at some point. So a third party purchased the property at a sheriff's sale, and he purchased the property directly or or indirectly after that purchase occurred.
But the sheriff's sale was not valid in that this property never should have been mortgaged without first being noticed to the city. I see, first of all, I'm really surprised, shocked completely. This is one of the most convoluted things I have ever seen on our Oklahoma property, and it's only worth $5,000, but it doesn't matter. It has gone through holders, and it's nonsense. It floors me that in April of 1960, Bob Henry would sign a lease contract for such a small amount of money for this long-term and ability to re-up. So at first, I didn't believe it was real, and in fact, Janae, I didn't think had it, and then we did get it, actually. But I believe, as you said, we would win in an argument, in a lawsuit, and it is signed right here. It is part of the contract. It is further covenant and agreed by between the parties that in the event the leaseor, its successors, or assigns shall, without fault on their part, be made a party to any litigation concerning this lease brought by or against said leasee, then said leasee shall pay all costs and attorney's fees incurred by the leaseor, its successors, or assigns on account of such litigation. So if we did go and come out on top, we were going to be receiving attorney's fees for that. And my question is Mr. Cloud aware of that? Because is he willing to risk the lawsuit fees, the legal fees from his attorney if this goes to court? Because the contract that we're all going back to in April 1960, it includes assignments. It includes assigns. So that would include him. Am I wrong?
I believe you're correct.
To me, it is so confusing, and I really don't believe that it was ever truly legal to do what was done with it, going beyond the original Rush family without them alerting the city that they're assigning it. And we have no record of that.
No, the lease does not contain a prohibition against assignment or a requirement that the lessor consent to the assignment. It provides that the property is subject to the lease in favor of both the lessee and the lessee's successors and assigns. And then, especially back in the 1960s, leases were often subject to mortgages, and this lease was mortgaged on more than one occasion. And one of those mortgages was, in fact, foreclosed, I think in the 1980s, maybe the 1990s.
It's just common practice to alert the original leaseor if an assignment is made. And it's shocking that, yeah, I understand the lease would have been included in a mortgage, but to not go back to the original leaseor and give notice, it's quite shocking. So if you believe we would come out on top, I would say we fight this. I am really sick and tired of us basically giving away land to squatters, or whatever you want to call it. The land is taken from the shareholders, which is the city, which is the citizens of this community. And it's been going on for decades, and I just say, where do you draw the line? So I don't believe we should cave in on this. Thank you, Jay.
Welcome.
Thank you, David. Anyone else? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to Resolution 0925? Yes, sir.
Ryan Cloud, 3300 East J Street, lifelong Arkansan. Madam Mayor, members of the board, this is my third appearance before you guys. Like I said, lifelong Arkansan, but I would actually like to live in Oklahoma on this piece of property. So, as Director Allen mentioned, my attorney has advised me to not, we filed this quiet title lawsuit to try to get some resolution. I spent the money, thought I was purchasing this land on clear title in 2020. So I've been 4.5 years trying to get this resolved, the title work resolved, so I can build a home for my wife and I there. My attorney said the same thing. Basically, what I'd like to do is settle this, not go to court, as under advice of my attorney. He's like, maybe, but probably not, and it would cost a lot of money either way. So that's not what I want to do. I would, like to agree on a fair price. My ideal outcome would be to buy this land, have a clear title on it, be able to get a construction loan, a mortgage, everything you can do when you have clear title on property. And I'm aware, I've had soil tests done, survey done. As I said last time, I'm aware this land falls under Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality restrictions on what kind of septic tank can be used, septic system can be used within 1/8 of a mile of an open body of water. Very restrictive. I've done the soil test on that, and I've, as a builder, built homes with that kind of system before. I could tell you my background. I have a degree in biology. In short, I don't think you will find, and I'm a kayaker, I don't think you'll find somebody more concerned with water quality, environmental quality to build on this property than me. So to the point, though, I would not take this to court and spend the money to probably lose it. I would prefer a fair and negotiated price, considering that I've already spent $30,000 to purchase, to close, to survey, to clear the brush, to do the soil test, and on my basic legal fees. So it's not like I'm just getting the land for $5,000. That's in addition to the $30,000 that I've already spent. That would be a fair negotiated price to finalize the sale, to make a real sale, which is what I thought I was getting, would be my ideal outcome. Barring that, as I understand from Mr. Williams at the previous meeting, I would apply for an extension of the lease after 2059, which would be a lot less than $5,000. That would, as I understand, give me the rights to control this property for the next 130 years, not give me the ability to get a construction loan, mortgage, clear title, typical things with proper ownership of property, but still be able to build a home, extend the lease for way beyond my lifetime, and be significantly less than $5,000-ish or some other fair price that we could agree on. So don't worry, I don't want to go to court. I don't have that kind of money. I do have a reasonable amount of money beyond the money that I've spent on this property already when I thought I was buying it. But if we can't agree on what we both consider a fair price, then I would keep the lease that I have, extend the lease, and like I said, give you $10 instead of $5,000 or so, or some other fair, reasonable price. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much. So, board, questions for Mr. Cloud?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So I might be the only board member who actually paddles upstream. So, but I've paddled that several times, and so as we look and to the to the, if I was looking at your property and to your left, looking downstream, so river left, that's actually the sediment from the old lake bed. That's where the lake bed originally existed. And most of that, for quite a ways up, is shelf or rock. Is that correct?
Between this property and like, so if you're looking south or west, down to the river, yeah, it's one of the tallest bluffs on the Illinois, I would say.
Right. So you're above that, and in my mind, this is a no-win. I know a little bit of the history of our mayoral time and Bob Henry, and I don't disrespect any of those. We had some characters back in the day. It was an interesting time. We had pool halls. I mean, we had Siloam. A lot of things took place back then. This property itself and to where we are today, as painful as it is, the cell is the cell is the solution, and we walk away from it. And if you violate anything, your penalties and fines in the state of Oklahoma will bankrupt you. So that's just the reality of life. If not, you get a $10 lease on there, you set up a yurt, and you bring in a porta potty, and you can violate whatever you want. And then you go away and use it as a weekend home. I mean, I'm a river liver. I know what happens, right? So Arkansas does a poor job of protecting its waterways. Oklahoma is our template because they've learned the hard way. I was a kid in the Highway 10 in 1970, so I've watched that progress over time. And so here we are, and it's time to wrap it up. It's time to just complete what's happening down there and to turn that over and turn you, not you a problem, but if you become a problem, you're Oklahoma's problem.
Right. And I would continue on that. So I said I'm a paddler. I'm not just a paddler. I'm the vice president of the local chapter of the Arkansas Canoe Club, due to be vice president of the state Arkansas Canoe Club. We have 1,200 member households in 4 states, thousands of people, paddlers, members of the Arkansas Canoe Club. And like I said, yes, my degree is in biology with an emphasis on conservation of endangered species. I've done stream bank restoration projects for the game and fish. I've done wildlife habitat and environmental qualities improvement projects under NRCS. And I'm aware of the laws of the state of Oklahoma, which I agree are stronger than ours. I can tell you now that there are properties near this one in question that have homes on them that are under a lease that do not have modern septic systems on them. And I would also say just one more thing about this property. It's old Lake Francis vacation property. There was cabins out there. It's served now by the city of Siloam Springs Electric Company. There's a utility right-of-way there to a perfect level building pad with a really nice view. So that's what got me interested in it. But so to your point, yes, I'm a paddler. Yes, I bought that when we heard the rumors of what was going to happen around the bend there, because I'm a paddler and I care about water quality.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Directors?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
The other people that are defendants in this quiet title petition, a lot of individual names and trusts, have they all signed off?
They have either signed off, there's one person that I think was related to the person that I bought the land from that has a very weak counterclaim to a small overlapping part. This is a 10-cornered piece of property. It's a really oddball thing. Like, so some surveyor way back in the day just was like, this flat part here, this 2.2 acres, we're gonna make this a piece of property. There's 10 corners, So lots of adjacent property owners. But to your point, all but one person that's named in the suit has signed off, and my attorney advises me that her claim is not strong, and we are likely to be able to resolve that with her either financially or a little swap.
It is in the buffer zone that someone brought up. What does that mean, the buffer zone? Do you know, Alan, or who knows the buffer zone?
Evan, can you touch that?
Madam Mayor, Kevin Moore, Public Works. I believe that buffer zone is a quarter mile either side of the intake and 300 feet off of the high water mark of the river. And that's the area that the health department has recommended that the city maintain control of.
So if this piece is, almost all of this piece is within that buffer zone. Here it is. I couldn't find that map a minute ago. It is, almost all of it is upriver from the Woka, it looks like. And we're supposed to be maintaining it. I don't understand how we can relinquish it. I really don't. This is very close to the actual river, this piece. When did the purchase occur, the sheriff's sale?
I'm not sure about the sheriff's sale.
Or when you got it?
2020.
That's what I thought.
Summer of.
2020. I just say, why were we not aware of this and bought it ourselves? It just frustrates the tar out of me that we can consistently, constantly have these problems with this property. And it being in the buffer zone is the biggest problem I see, that we should be required to hold all of that, no matter what. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Mr. Cloud, for answering your question.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else? Don, is there anyone in the public that would like to address Resolution 0925? There is not. Directors, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 09-25?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
No.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Resolution 0925 is approved. Thank you, Mr. Cloud.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board, and city staff. Thank you.
So with that, we will move into the administrator's report. Alan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Board, have three expenditures to report. The first one is in excess of $49,950 for 270 hours of spot tree trimming, AECI Electric Department. The second is $50,043 for 700 tons Type 2 surface wrap with Emery Sapp & Son Street Department. And the last one is $34,239. Engineering software integrated with BSA, the E-Plan software engineering. And then our first ever coffee and conversation on March 12th was a great success with a good turnout of community members and staff. We welcomed new faces and had meaningful conversation, enjoyed connections over coffee. We're excited to host our next one over the summer. Dates are still to be worked out in time, so I'll let you everyone know. During the snowstorm from February 18th to February 21st, the street and infrastructure crews worked 12-hour shifts to plow and de-ice and treat roads. The total cost of materials and labor for this effort was $99,349.34. Casella is down this week as we prepare for a transition to BSA. During this time, city departments will issue paper receipts for any payments received. Each receipt will be numbered and thoroughly documented to ensure accurate entry into BSA once the system goes live. The Sanitation Division is excited to announce the launch of a Green Business Recycling Award, a quarterly recognition for businesses demonstrating outstanding recycling efforts in the honor of Global Recycling Day today. We presented an inaugural award to Copy Connections and Design for their commitment to keeping their businesses green. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. So with that, we will move into our director's reports. And tonight, David, I'm going to start with you, and Mindy, we will end with you. Okay?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Well, I had something else here. Yeah, I think I brought it up earlier that just on the agenda, we needed to have a Scrivener's error on the dates for the regular meeting minutes and the workshop meeting minutes.
Yes,
They
I
had
think
today's date.
Yep, she's made note of that. Thank
Okay,
you.
good. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. Listening tonight on the discussion of the, what was it called, Meadow Court, to go back to redo stuff, it so often, and maybe this is not it, Meadow Court may not have been a good example, but when something is before and there are changes, to have to go, I mean, we heard staff say 3 months, and I get it. 3 months, massive new development, new restaurant, whatever. But if something's already come through and there's going to be a flip of a zone change or something, it just so often seems the requirement to wait until the first week of the month to turn in a new plan. You can't do it in the middle of the month, and it's a full 3 months. It just seems like sometimes for a change, it just seems a little awkward, and could be shortened. I would like to make a motion. We have been presented all the information. I haven't talked to anybody about this. This is just off the cuff, but I've been thinking about it a lot. We have seen an awful lot of emails. We've seen an awful lot of the effects of weather, and we've discussed it in 2 or 3 meetings. We've not made any decision, but we did get an estimate from our fire chief on the cost to upgrade the community building for that use or any other use. I think we need an alarm system. I think we need the hood system, $7,000, and a sprinkler system most assuredly is needed in that building. I would like to make a motion that we spend $132,000 to upgrade the community building, of which the money would come from the sale of the money from the land sale of Oklahoma, which was around $700,000, and it's just sitting there right now. That is my motion.
Do I have a second to that motion?
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
I don't think we can do that.
You most certainly can. We have it in our board rules that it's allowed. And you can't interrupt when she asks for a second.
I'm going to ask, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
And we have a motion and a second. Jay?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One moment, please. I don't
Yes.
have the board rules pulled up in front of me.
Right here.
Says upon the request of 2 board members, a new item may be added to the agenda during a meeting if it requires immediate board of directors consideration. So would this require an immediate?
The
That's-
fact that it is weather-related and that we have discussed it and have no final plan, no discussion on it, I think it's time that we make a decision on it, especially in regards to how much it affects the citizens of our community.
Dustin, you have something to say?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Dustin Kendall, Fire Chief. Just so you all know that those estimates, that was just a phone call to a couple of different vendors. So they haven't been out, they haven't measured, they don't, so that number might be skewed or off a little bit, just so you guys know.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Dustin, how easy would it be for you to get more exact figures?
For a project like that, we'll have to go, get 3 bids and everything like that, but
Would you
it
have
would just be
time
phone
to
calls.
get that by the next meeting?
Yes.
Would that be acceptable, David?
As long as we actually do something about it, yes. I don't want us to continue wanting it and talking about it, and we wheedle around it, and then we do nothing. As I said, besides the shelter use, I believe the building is historical enough that we should spend the money to preserve it. In case there's a fire, we have no way. There should be a sprinkler system in it. It's a beloved historical building of the community, and I think upgrading it is a good idea. And we have the money sitting there with nothing in mind for it right now.
So then, if that's what is agreeable, Betsy, are you agreeable to withdrawing your second? If David, yes, and David? you-
withdraw.
Okay.
If we have it on the next meeting, yes.
So then, Alan, would you be able to put something together, get estimates, and bring something as a proposal to this board by our next meeting?
Do my very best. You
Okay.
know, we had policy group, which we didn't get to have, so that's delayed because all this training we're going through because of the new software. Give me around 5 days to get this together before I have to get a budget out or agenda out, but I'll do my best.
All right, very good. So we will look for that on the next agenda. Thank you, gentlemen.
The only other thing I would say was I thought we had good discussion tonight. I appreciated the people showing up tonight and speaking, and it's good to have varied viewpoints on the board, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, David. Brad?
Madam Mayor, I had nothing, but now I have something. Thank you, Director Allen. So that's the American Legion Hall, and the metal in that building comes from our old Chautauqua Amphitheater. To include on that, Dustin, let's put some more work on your plate. So the hut in the back at the American Legion Hall, so that's all going to have to be included if we do the one or the other. And so just a heads up, having worked in that arena before, but it's been a while, it's going to be in the 200 bracket, which I don't shy away from. I totally agree that it's time to revamp that building, but just be aware those numbers are there. And then second, sales from that, our water district down there are another consideration for continuing the improvements to Sager Creek. So that would be water for water as we look into the future. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to point everyone's attention to the back wall with our new clock. Thank you very much for that. Our recent coffee conversation we had recently, I thought was awesome. I think some things are taking place in there, and I had a personal experience where someone from the community came for that meeting and voiced a concern, and it's being looked into and taken care of, and he felt like he was able to be heard. So I really appreciate it. I look forward to the next one. This morning, had an opportunity to go be a part of the Global Recycling Day. That's the right. And with Copy Connections, and it was good to see that. They were a little surprised. We're very glad for them. They represent us well as the community. Very glad for it. I'm going to bring up something that was placed in my mailbox recently, and it was something that, in my opinion, it wasn't something that was good. It was something he put in my mailbox concerning this city, and to me, it did not show initiative from someone trying to make this a better place, but it was not, there was no name to it or anything. So to me, instead of initiative, it showed more cowardice. I am willing to speak with some individuals if they so desire. I'm not ready to do yelling, shouting match, but to have some conversation, and if we differ, that's what it is. But I would just like to encourage us as a community, as a board, as Siloam Springs, that we do things that bring unity, not breed strife or division or bring about chaos. We have a relationship, if that's so to speak, with the employees of this community, with the leadership of this community. And I would just want to encourage us as individuals, as citizens, as people who love this community, that we do things that build up and not tear down. And whomever may have put this envelope in my mailbox, I'm willing to have a conversation, and if we need to have a mediator there, or I can welcome Chief Miller to be part of that, I would much rather have that than someone to hide behind whatever they're hiding behind. But this is a wonderful, fabulous community, and I'd like to see it stay that way. And if we can, let's do things that are going to build, because we are growing. We might as well do it right. And I'm willing to hear. If I disagree, I will be glad to speak with you concerning that. But we can also agree to disagree. But I would just encourage that to us all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Reed. Lisa?
I just want to encourage everyone again. We have a lot of bills going through. Keeping track of those it's hard for us on the outside. Can you imagine what it is for the senators and the representatives? They're exhausted, and they're going to go until the middle of April. They voted to go into the middle of April. You can tell they're weary and they're tired. But any input you have on a bill helps them represent us better. So if you see a bill that you don't agree with, or if you see a bill that's great, let them know either way. At least communicate with them and thank them for what they're doing, and kind of encourage them to keep going, because it's not easy driving to Little Rock during the week and then coming back and doing your other job and catching up with family and then going back to Little Rock again. So if I could encourage anything, I would encourage keep looking at those bills, support our representatives and our senators, and provide them communication. So, thank you.
Thank you. Betsy? I'm going home.
I don't blame you. It's past time. Just a couple of events going on around town. The Ability Tree next Monday, I think, is the 24th. It's the 24th from 9 to 4. They have free community stay and play. So this is for any kids in the community, and if you haven't been to their facility, it is really cool. They have this awesome gym, they have a craft room, outdoor area, sensory rooms. Kids can just drop in. I just realized they're doing this because it's spring break week. So parents, if you want something to do with your fairly young children, stop by the Ability Tree. It's at 2350 East Tahlequah Street. And that is the 24th from 9 to 4. Stop in and check it out. I also know they have memberships and things, but this is just a great service for the community. And one other thing, the Senior Center over on Heritage Court, which is off of West Tulsa, is having a fundraiser. So they are selling tickets for $5 or 5 tickets for $20. And basically, they're putting all the money in the pot. And whoever the winner is gets half the money. So, and the other half goes to the Senior Center. So stop by there and help support another great place in our community. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ken?
Thank you, Nancy. I just want to thank Reed for his comments. I was thinking about that and wondering if I should say anything or not, and he did a much better job than I probably would have, so I won't. I might just add to that, there's a lot that gets thrown around on social media, and that's no forum to accomplish anything productive. So it's easy to hide behind things when you're sitting at your computer. So I would also suggest refraining from that, and let's have some positive conversation, but that's all I'll throw out.
Thank you, sir. And before I come to you, Mindy, I have a question for you, Alan. Lisa talked about watching the bills that are going on. Did the bill concerning the planning outside our 1 mile, has it come up for a vote yet?
It has, it was on the governor's desk, but I haven't heard from that for signage, but I haven't, I don't know if it's still there, but I haven't heard if it's signed yet. But I know it passed and it was on the governor's desk.
And so can you kind of, tell us what that means for us as a city or any city in this?
I would love to do that, but I know there was possible changes in that bill, and I don't know what they are because I haven't seen it. Ms. Director Rissler, you
It
may know some.
eliminates the 1 mile radius.
What I thought. It
It
pretty much
basically
just-
eliminates it.
Which is very concerning because, again, it could limit what we're doing in our 1 mile area, because I've talked to some other mayors about it, and it's going to limit us. And that, please keep up with these bills, because there's some bills coming down that are very scary, that what they can do to our city.
Hopefully it doesn't, the one with the eliminating all zoning in Arkansas, I hope it's not gaining momentum. I don't see it gaining momentum, but
It was
Jay
in
might know
committee,
before
I'm
me.
not sure if it's out, but yes, ma'am, it would completely wipe out all zoning in the cities. That means it's just they could build whatever they want to do in the cities.
Within the city?
It's
The
within the
state,
cities.
the whole state.
The whole state. They want to remove all zoning, planning, anything that has to do with that in every city. And I will tell you, I was in a meeting this afternoon with all the mayors from Benton County and the judge, and they are very concerned about this bill because there's people that are actually for this. They are promoting this, which is hard to believe because we've got people in Little Rock supposed to be representing us. And this bill would change the face of our cities.
Did you say it has passed and it's on the
No,
governor's desk?
no, that one hasn't come up.
That one I
That's a
think is
different
still
one.
in committee. I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this, but it's the same representative that passed the planning bill that's also trying to pass this
eliminated
bill.
Yes, that is correct.
But there's some bills that are, I mean, there's been some good bills and bad
Yes.
bills. I mean, there was one to let people run all red lights that if there's no traffic around. It didn't go anywhere, but it was presented.
There's some whoppers.
But yeah,
We
there's
just
a
got to
lot
keep
of
an eye
things.
on them.
Yeah, so Lisa's absolutely right. Please keep up with these bills and let your representatives know because some of these bills are not good. They're just not. And like the comment was made today by the mayors that, it's almost like they've decided there's an assault on our cities by these people in Little Rock. And, your cities are where your money comes from, where everything that makes this state great, and it is a great state, and we have great cities, but we have to maintain that, or it will change. So, anyway, she reminded me of that, and I thought.
It's very serious, but I
It's
agree.
serious.
We have some good, we have some good representatives.
We do.
That keep us in the loop, and Representative Torres actually sent me a text this morning with a new bill, just asking, because that's what I've asked. Ask their input, let me check with our community development department, our directors, and get you some answers, because I think a lot of these bills are thrown on them so quick. They don't have a lot of time to do research because they have so much going on, and I think a lot are depending on AI and different things like that to figure out exactly what this stuff means. But again, sometimes you need to reach out to those experts that are in those fields to tell you what the actual impact is to the community.
You can't just go by the title. A lot of people will
No.
go by the title and think, oh, that sounds like a great bill. No, you got to read the bill and know the substance of it. Because you could be voting for something, insane.
Yep, absolutely, because the title of one of those bills talks about protecting Property rights.
That's the zoning. It's,
Oh, yeah,
it's a
that's how it's
very
labeled.
catchy title,
Yeah,
little bit.
it
Ooh,
is.
this looks like a good thing. No.
No, so, anyway, just had to say that. Thank you. So Mindy, on to you.
Well, follow that. Okay, just to piggyback a little bit on what Ken was saying about social media, I've just not had much time myself to be on social media. I was never a big social media person anyway, but sometimes posts can kind of take a life of their own, and sometimes the people posting don't always have all the information. So there may be some things that are partially true but not fully true, and so you just have to be real careful about, one, believing everything you read, and two, jumping on those bandwagons. I think we would, all of us up here, rather that you just contact us directly if it's a post about city business, contact us directly. We'll do what we can to work it out, because when it starts taking a life of its own, that's when maybe some of the truth kind of gets a little fuzzy. So other than that, spring break is next week, so that may mean more children out and about on the streets. Just watch out for the kiddos, and if you're going somewhere, safe travels. Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. Do I have a motion? Yes.
I move
Yes.
that we adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.